Hello there, Vayner community. Hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday. It is August. It is back to school season, and it is another fun day of platforms, algorithms, and culture at VaynerMedia. Today, I'm thrilled to be hosting Jamie Estreller, who leads our PAC team, along with Peter Chun, who is our global head of PAC and EVP. These are two superstars who help our organization stay on the tip of the spear when it comes to what's actually happening on platforms, what is changing in algorithms, and what are the cool things, undercurrents in culture that our clients can connect to drive their business. They're going to explain exactly what PAC means. This is something we talk a lot about in the Vayner universe, from Gary to our different VM offices to a bunch of the different other Vayner companies. And we're also going to highlight a new feature that we're super excited about. Instagram just rolled out something called Reposts, and these two geniuses have a million ideas of why this matters and how brands can start taking advantage of that underpriced attention. We love to think about where are the things that not everyone is doing yet, but they will be in 6 months. That is really what Peter and Jamie specialize in. And I feel like this repost feature is one of those things that makes you open your eyes. Wow, this matters. When you get an email from Gary that says, pay attention to this, then we start paying attention and we start doing webinars. Peter, Jamie, what's up, guys?
What up? What up?
Heyo, heyo.
Where are you all dialing in from? Are we in New York? We Jerseying?
New York, Brooklyn, heyo.
We flee to the burbs of New Jersey to the pandemic, so holding it down, adjusting still many years later.
I love it. I love it. Okay, awesome, guys. So let's go and jump right into this. But before we get into the deck, I'm curious if you two are using Repost personally yet.
I am. Once it fully rolled out, I was kind of precious about what my first repost would be. It felt a little bit different than TikTok, where I'm just like repost, but this felt different. But I finally just did it, and now I'm just reposting a bunch of stuff.
I have very similar to Jamie.
Purple button is just flying from your fingers.
Yeah, very similar to Jamie. Reposted content at first did feel a little funny, and that's interesting how that plays out and how it normalizes over time. We'll talk about why that actually affects reach and distribution in a second. But I haven't had a post get reposted yet. That's because I've really been posting stories, but I got some stuff that's cooking. If you don't follow me, hopefully you'll see it over the next few days and maybe you'll repost it. But then if you see it and you recognize me, you'll be like, it's that guy from Vayner.
I love it. We actually have been using the repost feature at VaynerMedia to share some of our top client work of the week, but we're going to get into that later. I will let you all break it down first for our LinkedIn and YouTube community.
Awesome. Thanks, Ave. All right. I think we're going to get this deck up. We talk a lot about platforms, algorithms, and culture. It's a business unit and practice that Gary and a handful of us started probably less than 2 years ago. And a little bit of history, it was actually platforms and culture when it started, because it was both what's happening on platforms, but also like what's happening in culture that allows you to be relevant. Algorithms over the last year have really surged its head as like a thing that's not woo-woo. It's actually very tangible. And it's something that we all have to understand in order to drive relevance at scale. We now live in this world, and many of you that might be tuning in are like, my views go up, they go down, the thresholds keep adjusting, it's hard to keep up. How do I do it? And I think we are now in this place that's very important to understand. PAC is a mechanism that allows you to make relevant content. We'll talk more about what that is, but the P is really around platform. So every new feature, which by the way, Jamie, it feels like it's every day there's one or two things, or every week, one or two platform features that are coming out. And moreover, they all kind of look like each other, right? And it's like YouTube just launched a collab feature that Instagram had, and Instagram is launching the repost feature that TikTok had, and vice versa. But the real important thing here is that these placements and features that are relatively new are important to adopt, because generally speaking, the platform wants to see how they perform. And so consumers and creators may be taking advantage of stuff, but if you're a marketer and a brand, you got to be acting as a creator today to get the maximum amount of reach. We're also going to spend a lot of time today talking about algo, right? Which is the key point here is primary metrics, but moreover, the behavior people need to take once they see your content has a huge impact on your ability to get reach and scale. So we'll talk more about that. And on the cultural front, it's understanding why things are relevant. And so My advice to all of us here is there's all the things that you want to say as a brand or a creator or a marketer. There's not an infinite amount of time and thus inventory in people's feeds. And so you really have to understand what people care about. Like, for example, travel, there's a rise of the supermarket tourism. You're seeing more and more of that in feed. In fashion, there's the Pantone outfit challenge. And thus, like, playing into those conversations and being a brand or a creator that participates in those will likely gain more distribution. Today, we're going to be going deeper in the P and the A, platforms and algos, and we'll talk more about what that is. The reason why pack is so important, it's one of the pillars I think all of us here need to understand, is we are now squarely in the non-follower era, right? 95% of views are generated by algorithmic recommendations. Many of us may remember some of the pushback that a lot of consumers, talent, publishers gave Instagram, I think the end of 23, when they like turned every video asset into a reel. All they wanted to get was 20% of content to be consumed by people that you didn't follow. And now it's, completely flipped the other way. So as an organization, we've generated more million viewed Instagram reels than we've ever created TikToks. And the common denominator across all of those is, if you look here in this purple kind of chart here, is that this shows 99.4% non-followers. We've seen between 99.2 to 100% non-followers at the scale of 15, 17, 20, 25 million views. And so you have to really make content for people that don't follow you in order to get distribution. And so how do you actually identify these things? We have this framework here called the Underpriced Attention. Gary's been talking about underpriced attention for as long as I've known Gary, right? And this is why he's been tip of the spear with so much conviction, because there's really 4 sections to how almost everything in our ecosystem evolves, which is things are emergent, things are underpriced, which we'll explain. Then they get to a tip of saturation, and then sometimes they drop off. But the dotted line here is really where consumer attention really sits. The red line is almost typically where brands follow. So if you're a brand in the audience and you see these new features, but you're like, it doesn't actually measure the way that I measure things, or it's not in the advertising stack that satisfies my needs, I'm going to wait, it's probably too late. And so playing in this underpriced attention bucket is incredibly important. So today we're really focused on Instagram, and Jamie's going to go deeper on some of this stuff, but I wanted to overlay some of these features and placements that Instagram has launched, over the past few months, and kind of overlay that onto this chart. So IG Maps, as we all know, there's been some PR, some positive, some critical, some negative, and we don't know if it's actually going to play a role, how it will play a role. But we know that it's emergent, so it's something that we're keeping tabs on. Jamie, I know you got a lot of recommendations, so you can go deeper here. Reposts are very opportunistic, and Jamie will break this down. But there's 2 types of reposts: making content that gets reposted, and then you actually reposting content. So both of those are emergent. Reposts coming closer to underpriced because it is an enormous mechanism of reach and finding non-followers. And in the underpriced attention bucket, if you go to the right, you'll see that I've also included reposts here that are almost outside the underpriced attention bucket, because it's really the behavior of people and brands reposting some of their best older content. And at some point, that's going to be saturated, right? And we know that that won't perform well. And we're already starting to see some points of diminishing return less than 90 hours from release of the feature. Static images and carousels can now get the distribution of reels. That happened 2 to 3 weeks ago. Historically, it was just reels, predominantly reaching non-followers. But now you got static images and carousels, and now you can really go quote unquote viral with more placements other than just video. And that's an enormous opportunity. Now, some of the things that are saturated and dropped off, broadcast channels, I still believe is incredibly under indexed. It's just not utilized correctly. There's so much value there when done correctly. Hashtags are known to not necessarily help you get incremental reach, but it is something that you should use to speak the love language of the consumer, be the slang, be relevant in every which way, and like an if you know, you know. So that's still there, but in terms of it being an impact mechanism to reach, less so. And ultimately, like Facebook 1-second reels, like it had its moment, right? Like April into May, we just saw astronomical reach. And now that everyone's kind of up on it, we're starting to see that performance decay. So this is a little bit of like how we're viewing the technical nature of these platforms and features and where you should invest, how you actually output the videos that you may create, whether it's Reels, TikTok, or YouTube. But today we're double clicking to Reels. With these new announcements, I'm going to flip it over to Jamie to go deeper into maps, reposts, and your friend feed.
Sweet. Thanks, PC. So yeah, last week Instagram launched 3 new features. I know PCs, it was like there was a lot of features that drop every week. We were like, okay, is Instagram kind of like slowing down? And then boom, on a summer in August, on a random day, they launched 3 new features. We had Repost, Friends Map, and Friends Feed, all under the umbrella that Meta / Instagram really want to help people discover content from their own connections, right? We are in this non-follower era, but there's been this like craving culturally. If you look at people wanting to go in the private groups, trying to find other apps that like get back to what social media was back in the day of social graphs, MySpace, Tumblr. What are my friends engaging with, and what can I see? So it's bringing it back to using you looking at the content that your friends are liking, and based on all those interests and behaviors.
Okay, Jamie, I have a question to sort of tap into this, because we hear from a lot of consumers that they're like, I don't like how this has shifted. We might be in the non-follower era. Maybe they just want to see Uncle Pete at the beach, right? But they're not seeing that because they're seeing creators all the time. Do you think this is sort of a way that Meta is helping balance both of those?
I think it's going to be a big balance of that, and it's going to be blended. I think when we think about how this actually shifts the algorithm, when we say vetted content, yes, I do want to see my friends again. I don't want to just see all the content that I'm liking, which is very helpful in content discovery, right? Like, I just want to like or see other content that's like based on WNBA, give me all this content. But I also want to see what my friends are doing. It also opens up my world into, I'm not a parent myself, but I would like to see more parenting content. What's happening in that realm?
Let's go, Jamie.
So there is also strategic implication here in terms of insights that is also like the triple click into all of these different types of feeds and where people are discovering content and posting content. But yes, it's going to be the blending of the both.
I want to hear how this matters to brands. Guys, tell us about that.
Yes. So if you go to the next slide, PAC is platforms, algorithm, and culture. There's a big emphasis on the A right now, the algorithm. When we think about, the non-follower and my own piece of my own FYP, my screen time is really high. You start to like something start to like 3 different posts, and then your For You page kind of changes within 10 minutes, right? This piece of content can now get discovered in many ways. A suggested post on your main feed, in the Explore page, and then also the Reels tab. That's 3 different types of feeds that people are looking at that your one single piece of content can now get discovered on. And I'm going to say it like, it is now almost like a pathway for other content. It's going to be like the non-follower to follower pipeline that gives a single piece of content, incremental reach. I'm going to say it in quotes, for free. Now that is important, especially for brands when you think about content and production costs, and also who you're working with in terms of creators and the collab. So when we go back to reposts, it is a native reshare button, very similar to the retweet on X. Back in my day, it was the repost on Tumblr. But if you look at the button, it's also strategically interesting that they put it right above the send arrow, the DM one, where that historically that was the share button, right? But it had limited reach. It was on your story. It was through a DM. It was a closed circle. But now once you can do the repost, it actually shares on that reposter's followers feed. If you are a brand, this repost and looking at what a repost means for you is very important. Because if a person discovered your content as a non-follower and they reposted your piece of content because it was so relevant to them, you just got incremental reach. You just got into another person's feed that you had not been originally been maybe creating for, right? We call this qualified non-follower audiences, because it is based on social proof that if I like something, I repost it, that brand, I'm giving the signal that this piece of content from a brand might be relevant to PC. PC likes it. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to repost it. Now just think about the incremental scale of that with one piece of content. And if we think about Instagram too, I was working on a campaign where impressions was the name of the game. Maximize your impressions. The only real native way to do that Instagram was a collab, right? To reach non-followers. I am going to collab with this like-minded football account because we want to reach football audiences. We create a collab, it gets distributed to both followers. You're like, that's my non-follower. Now, if you do a collab and people repost, that just adds fuel to the fire in terms of organic discovery. So I think it is going to be game changing when you think about your collab strategy. So also put in what a repost could mean.
So Jamie, real quick, there's a couple of questions. So
Yeah.
Hannah Zook asked, do we view this differently than TikTok reposts? I think is the first question. Hannah, I would say to some extent, yes, because the behavior of reposting on TikTok is inherently so much more native to all the different things that people do on Instagram. I think the opportunity here is a little bit of like the DMing as a megaphone becomes like the real play. DMing and sharing of reels has become effectively the behavior that consumers take on any asset, especially brand related content that takes brand content to millions of views. Being able to distribute that DM across all of the consumers that may be seeing the content that are not followers will just give you an exponential amount of reach. But I would view it almost as a DM with a megaphone. And that kind of hits Nitya's question as well on audience size mattering. To some extent, yes, but the volume, right, of reposts that you may gain and the diversity of the reposts that you gain will likely play a bigger role. It's still early to understand how the algorithm favors it. But at the end of the day, the most basic principle of all of this is make content that's shareable. Don't think of all the hacks. Don't think of all the gaming. It's just know reposts are a mechanism to get reach to non-followers, which give you a higher probability of them DMing or sending reels to other people that don't know. And then that kind of perpetuates the machine that allows you to get as much non-follower distribution, which is vital to getting virality, quote unquote, virality on the platform overall.
Cool. Love that, PC. Some early pro tips. Again, this launched next week. The name of the game is experiment, experiment, experiment. Don't be so precious. You're like, what's my first repost? Like me, I was like, just repost it. Some things that I've been seeing already is reposting your top performers. I would say if you look at your own analytics, just give it a second life. It's already performing well. Give it a quick bump with an updated note, because if you look at the button, it gives you the purple button has a note that you can update and give it more context that's more relevant to the moment and the timing. One thing that's also happening is if you are a bigger brand with, I would say, sub brands, repost the content from other brands. I know we have a VaynerMedia example. I don't know if Avery wants to pop back in, but it's not just about reposting top performers, but giving love to all the other ones.
Oh, I sure do. So I'm going to explain how a B2B marketing agency thinks about using the repost feature, because at Vayner, we're making thousands of pieces of content per day. And there is a little thing called client approvals. Sometimes clients, don't want us to share exactly how we made it, how the sauce was made, all of that, and for good reason, right? But one thing I love about the repost feature is that we can share some of our top performing SMAs as VaynerMedia in a way that, we're not oversharing. This is an approved piece of work that's out, that's in the wild. And our Chief Creative Officer, Rob, does his favorite, 5 pieces of content per week based on reach and engagements. So we are going to start sharing those. We shared our first 5 last week. We're going to share Rob's 5 this week. And that'll be a really cool way for people who are following VaynerMedia to get a taste of the work that we're doing. And also people who want to work at VaynerMedia are like, oh, great, this is the kind of work Vayner's doing. If I'm a client, maybe I'm peeking in there and being like, oh, I really like what you just did for Pepsi, or like, that was a cool SMA for JCPenney, or like, wow, that was a like really nice piece for Fanatics or Coach or any of the number of different brands that we're servicing. So I love this as a way to showcase your work. Then think about if you're like, if I'm a tile company, right? Oh, great. Here's all the people who've
Right.
tagged me. Maybe I'm sort of
Mhm.
reposting those as a way to demonstrate your work and your expertise.
I also think the third leg building off of that one, Abe, is your ability to connect with the community. So brand reposting a big fan or stands post that really shows how the product has changed or affected, or even topics not related to their business. They may just be a post of empathy and feeling and connectivity. A brand has so much power to repost and deliver value, and it may change the perception of how you're viewed. Right. So I
I
think,
love
all,
that. More
yeah.
relatable.
So
And it's not coming from
correct.
your brand handle. Because we know a lot of times brands will actually contract creators and influencers. They won't want to put it on their main handle, but it's not a main handle, it's a repost. And I think
Correct.
that kind of lets them live in that happy medium area.
Absolutely. All right, James, let's keep it going to the friends map.
Cool. So the friends map, where you can find it. We did hear a little bit of a reactive, either in a positive, critical, negative sentiment around friends map. It is still new, right? It is accessible via the notes feed. So if you go all the way to in your DM inbox, you'll see it as a notes feed. It is an opt-in feature, meaning it displays two things. If you click into it, you'll see the last active quote unquote location of selected friends. Those friends need to opt in and actually share their location with you, very similar to Apple, right? But you will also see location tagged content in there. And this is why I think the more important part of it, besides just like find my friends on Instagram, but it is a new a hyper local discovery engine.
Mm.
Because if you tag your content, so I'm a brand, I have an event that's going on, tag that content with that location so it can be discovered in the friends map. You're just giving another extra piece of discovery if you add this other layer of geotags, right? It happens
That's
in reels and posts, stories, etc. And there's a lot of different ways to use this, but the location tag is important at this juncture so you can show up in the friends map. If I'm visiting another city, right? I was in Spain. I was like, I need to know what are the cool restaurants around here. I want to look at all the different location tags. What are people sharing? What are they
yeah,
ordering? So it's a good thing for brands who have specific locations, QSR, restaurant, retail, especially if there's different neighborhoods that are different.
absolutely. I also love the idea, Jamie, of being able to potentially toggle it on or off.
Mm,
I'm not sure the impact of toggling it off and what happens to content that might have been on the map, but if you're
mm.
actually using it as your pop-up moments to drive awareness in communities, encourage people in the moment to share, the maps is very emergent in that chart, as we all know. So what happens with it is TBD, but it's clearly important and strategic enough for them to make a very, very big product launch.
Yeah. So I think the pro tip here is allocation tags where it's relevant, right? I think there's a creative opportunity that if you are either a creative or a brand that kind of creates their own city guides, there's an opportunity to create a content series around that and just adding like the geotags to it. We do have a call out here for any brands that have or social media managers who have an account that's logged in from multiple areas, just to like not confuse where you're posting from. Just for you to turn that setting off in your privacy and security. But to the point, like Meta's pretty adamant about the privacy settings and it being an opt-in feature for your friends map and the location of, or quote unquote live location of where you're at. All right, the friends feed. Now this is accessible in the Reels tab. So if you go there, it's a curated feed of public Reels that your friends have interacted with. And it's not just comment, it's also a like. If they shared it, there's some sort of like signal mechanism there for that to then surface in the friends feed. I think it's important here because you again are seeing content that is outside your own interests and your past behaviors, but is also a signal of like, because we're friends, do we have mutual interests? Can this also show up on my feed? That's cool. And
And is
you
this
get to see
also
that
true for
content
brands, Jamie? Because I want to double click into this. On the map, like I get it as a
on
consumer,
the
as a
map.
user, I actually am already using this and think it's interesting. As a
Mhm.
brand, you said it's actually based on where the logged in person is. So it's not like based on your store locations. It's not like a business feed type of thing yet.
The,
But for the friends feed, say you're a brand, how do you incorporate that?
the friends feed, I think it's important. It goes back to who you're creating for. So there's a little bit of some sort of hacks to it, right? Because if you think about creating for the inner circle and the group chat, and this is so you, this is so me, or this is so us, the mentality shifts in terms of the type of content that you're making, the hook, right? The call to action, the caption. Um, it is just another signal to show that it is not just relevant to me, it's relevant
Mm.
to if it's relevant to me, it also could be relevant for my friends. If my friends like it, and then if my friends like it and engage with it too, it just becomes another signal to become like another signal of relevance. And then obviously the algorithm will do its thing and then spread it out more. So it is about content validation within social circles. I would say the brand implication here is about content creation and the insights that you're using. This is where C comes in. Who you're making for, the cohort, the cultural moment. You know, T Swift yesterday obviously announced her album, right? But the conversation that made it from a moment into momentum was the conversation.
And the
If
color
you go
orange.
and the color orange. So if you go into the mindset of like what will drive conversation, that will then help you get closer to it will appear in my friends feed. Again, it's just another way to lurk and spend time. You're looking at reels, your own feed. You're like, okay, let me just look at reels, explore tab. What are my friends liking? I'm going to roast them because they like that. Uh, it's just another way of distribution. And I think it goes back to, is this piece of content relevant with the cohort or audience I had in mind?
Which is if you're a brand or a marketer in the room, the leveraging who you follow is very important. It's a strategic tip, so to speak. It's like be intentional around who you follow, because that may give you leading indicators into what Jamie's talking about, things that may pop off because the people you may follow may have millions of followers. They have the ability to influence or steal cultural conversations and engagements and or incept conversations. And so like following that feed will give you insight into where you should potentially participate as a brand.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the reaching qualified non-followers, Jamie, before we wrap up because we're hitting the red zone.
Cool, cool, cool. So Instagram came out with a diagram last, I think 2 weeks ago. And I was like,
Yeah.
let's build on this because yes, making for a specific audience based on the placement is important. It all starts with who do you want to reach? But this whole new features of just repost, the friends map and friends feed now allows that you're not just reaching new audiences, but you have the ability to reach qualified non-followers and be discovered in other types of feeds based on the behaviors of what your followers or friends are doing. So it just, again, nails it that like you have to create content that's super relevant. Go interests first, right?
Yeah.
Non-followers,
I really like this
not as top
visual.
of the funnel. And
I
then
love
you
this
go down.
visual. It's super useful. And I love the connection that you guys have also made. Everybody give it up for the pack team, for Jamie and for Peter. This was super interesting. It is packed with insights. We're going to do a blog post about this as well that sort of breaks all of this stuff down. Jamie, Peter, give it the last speed minute of your big recommendations here.
Yeah, I'll do the quick kind of summary. So everyone here should walk away that you live in the non-follower era. Doesn't demonize followers. It's just going to take longer for your followers to see the content, which means you need to make content that people actually care about first versus all the things that you want to say. This now is enabled by instituting what we like to think of pack. We went through Instagram. Jamie took us illustratively through Repost, Friends feeds, Maps. There's 100 other ones by platform, and incorporating that into how you actually publish content will help you gain more distribution. And moreover, just understand that you must move quickly. Speed is the most underutilized and under-indexed asset. And because no brands around you are doing it, means it's the exact reason why you should. So thanks for joining us. We're going to send this out as an email follow-up. There'll be a blog post. But I would like to challenge everyone here, or a little bit of a go-do, repost, comment under this post on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear how you're seeing things. We don't have all the answers. So much of this is the value of the community that we have. So share the repost tips, hacks, tricks, where you're seeing fatigue, where you're seeing velocity. We'd love to keep the conversation going. So thank you all.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Jamie.